It worked. Thank you.
What is the password for my computer? Well, I want to see the agenda. Thank you.
Hey, there we go.
Okay, hello, good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brad Gottschall. I am the Lower Paxton Township Manager, and in typical fashion, I'm going to give a brief summary of tonight's agenda before we begin, particularly for the benefit of those who may be watching at home this evening. So as you can see, obviously, we have a very ceremonial type of an evening prepared for us. The police department will be swearing in a number of new officers to what I'm assuming is a very excited and interested crowd. And then it has a number of items under new business, which the board will get into after the swearing in, including action on bids for the 2021 Sanitary Sewer Improvements Project, presented by Mr. Weaver. Action on Ordinance 21-03, which will amend Chapter 203 of the Codified Ordinances, specifically related to the keeping of bees and chickens. The board will then take action to award the selection of a comprehensive update to the zoning ordinance proposal. Then, under new business, finally, the board will take action on Resolution 21-17, with which authorizes the disposition of a Colonial Park ladder truck, which is in accordance with the Fire Equipment Capital Plan. Lastly, on the agenda before adjournment, the board will take action on improvement guarantees and the payment of bills of the Lower Paxton Township Authority and the township itself. So with all that said, the board members are seated and prepared to conduct business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gottschall. We'll call this meeting of the Lower Paxton Township Board of Supervisors to order. I'd like to ask everyone to please rise, and Supervisor Zumas will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will now move to approval of minutes for the April 20th, 2021 board meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the Board of Supervisors business meeting on April the 20th, 2021.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. At this time, I'd like to announce the Board of Supervisors did meet in executive session prior to the start of the public meeting and to discuss personnel items, and we'll be doing so again following this meeting. Now is the time set aside for public comment. Public comment is for any item that is not on the agenda tonight. If you are here to speak to an item that is on the agenda, we'll then have your comments, public comments, at the time that that item comes up on the agenda. So is anybody here who would like to make public comment for an item not on the agenda? Anybody like to make comment on an item not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Now is the time set aside. We are going to have a ceremony this evening to swear in newly hired Lower Paxton police officers. I would like to ask our Public Safety Director, Adam Koshiba, to please come to the podium. And I think it is very appropriate that we are doing this evening. I'm sure that all of you last week were aware of the situation that occurred over in the Penns Woods development. It was a very difficult situation, very challenging, with hostages, a danger to the public. And I think it's appropriate that we recognize Director Koshiba and the outstanding work of the Lower Paxton Township Police Department, our neighboring police departments, county agencies, state police, etc., all of whom were able to bring that very difficult situation to a conclusion without further loss of life or injury. And Director Koshiba, it was your patience and professionalism that led us through that, and we just wish to express to you our deep appreciation for what you did for our community last week. Thank you.
Here, here.
And with that, Director, we now have the opportunity to swear in some new officers.
Yes, sir.
Do you wish to make comments before we come forward, or?
No, sir.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, keep it moving. Keep it moving. Okay. We have our 4 officers present, and are you all ready to take your oath of office? We are. Okay, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name, being duly appointed as a police officer of the Township of Lower Paxton, I, being a duly appointed police officer of the Township of Lower Paxton, in Dauphin County, Pennsylvania, do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution and laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and the ordinances of the Township of Lower Paxton. I will uphold, obey, and enforce the law without consideration to a person's race, gender, religious creed, sexual orientation, age, national origin, handicap, or disability, and I will discharge my duties as a police officer with honor and fidelity. Congratulations.
And what we'll do now is call each individual officer over to the chairman, and they will sign their oath of office. Officer John Balint. Officer Balint is 23 years old and has been a resident of Lower Paxton Township all of his life. He attended and graduated Bishop McDevitt High School in 2016. After graduation, he attended Penn State University, where he earned a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. John then enrolled in Hacks Police Academy and graduated with the 118th Police Academy class in March of 2021. John has been employed part-time with the Derry Township Police Department as a community service officer for the last 4 years. Officer Balint is joined this evening by his extensive family, parents John and Patty Balint, brother and sister Danielle and Nicholas Balint, both sets of grandparents, 3 aunts, 2 uncles, fiancée Katie Humphrey, as well as future mother-in-law Mike and Beth Humphrey and their son Adam. Officer Matthew Bond. Officer Bond is 22 years old and is currently a resident of Lake Ariel, Pennsylvania. Matthew attended and graduated from Western Wayne High School in 2016.
After graduation, he attended Lackawanna College, where he earned an associate's degree in criminal justice. Matthew enrolled in the Lackawanna Police Academy and graduated with his Act 120 certification in May of 2019. Matthew has been employed both by the Dalton Borough and South Abington Township Police Departments for the last 2 years. Officer Bond is joined this evening by his mother, Bonnie Bond, and his girlfriend, Lauren Fink. Officer Lauren Neely. Officer Neely is 30 years old and currently a resident of State College, Pennsylvania. Laura attended and graduated from Altoona Area Community College in 2009. After graduation, she attended West Virginia University, where she earned a bachelor's degree in criminology. Lauren enrolled in the Hack Police Academy and graduated with the 112th Police Academy class in December of 2017. Lauren has been a reservist with the West Virginia Army National Guard since 2011, where she is currently a staff sergeant and served as a vertical engineer. Lauren has been employed by the Ferguson Township Police Department for the last 4 years. Officer Neely is joined this evening by her boyfriend, Frankie Gonzalez. Officer Cody Webster. Officer Webster is a 30-year-old and a resident of Lower Paxton Township. He attended and graduated from Central Dauphin East High School in 2010. After graduation, he attended Purdue University on a football scholarship and earned his bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Cody then enrolled in the Hack Police Academy and graduated with the 109th Police Academy class in May of 2016. Cody has been employed as a police officer with the Steelton Borough Police Department for the last 5 years, where he was a canine handler. Officer Webster is joined this evening by his parents, Charles and Janine Webster, sister and brother-in-law, Catherine and Chris Bizzard, nieces Amaya and Juliana, and nephew Zayden, fiancee Renee Foster, and future mother and father-in-law Bob and Heather Foster, and brother-in-law Garrett Foster.
Chairman of the board, would you like to do the pictures now or after? Okay, we'll move the table and take a tactical pause for some quick pictures here. Thank you. So if all the new hires would come up first for a group picture with the board.
have to put your hats on if you don't want to. You have more hair. Try and get everybody in here and around them. How about you guys? Those of you not in uniform, come up in front and take a picture. That's not to embarrass somebody. Just make it more comfortable for taking pictures.
I need to buy a challenge. He probably has them in his pocket.
Is that good, Wade?
I heard that. I'm like,
How far can you go? I got everybody here. Voices. How about now?
Yeah.
oh, well. Oh, well, that's good.
Frankie, why don't you come up here? Frankie, come on up here.
All right, everybody ready? We're ready. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. One, two, three.
I'm good. How you doing? Rector, I need to buy a challenge coin. But there's two?
They should take one at a time.
Sure they will.
I think that's what's next, yeah.
Come on up.
Everybody up so we know who's left for with the chickens. So if we get the whole family in there.
Well deserved. That's stressful.
You mean the rest of these people are chickens?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you think of how many ways that you can coincide with this, later it'll hear split second. Tough call.
Watch the press conference.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
That's a young man's game.
But hey, your expertise, Adam.
That's what
Thank
Jeff
you.
Klein just said.
The only problem is Jeff's going to be 64. I think he's just
Oh my. He's got a long way to go. Oh yeah, I was going to say, he's got a long way to go. Well, he'll be 50 next year.
Yeah. Will you be 65, Jim?
What?
Jeff and I'll be 64 in August, so. You need to sign up for Medicaid.
Start counting backwards.
I don't need it.
Yeah. You do, even though you must sign up for Medicaid. You don't. And when that time comes, you do.
You good, brother?
You just go. Once Joe. Hard A. Yeah, just go. She goes over the hill. That's your house. That's your house. Just sign up.
Raise that hand.
I was at a meeting when 4 years ago she texts me. He says, why put it on my camera?
That's true. That's true.
Many years. Cody.
Rearrange this promptly, then when we're done.
Oh, we got plenty of time. Who knows? Who knows? It's all about that tonight. Them and chickens.
Well, then you better manage our pension fund well here.
That's what the rest of these people are here for. Yes. We just want to. Let's see, we got 50-something. Not too bad. Just we'll put this to bed tonight real quick.
Anyone else want pictures with the new hires? New officers? Thank you all. For those of you who are here with the officers, you're free to go downstairs, enjoy some light snacks that we have for you, and we'll see you downstairs.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's good. Yes. What's that? Yeah, better. No, we don't have any microphone there. Okay. Okay.
So Belen is Richie.
We will now move to chairman and board member comments. Board members, do you have any comments?
Interesting. I just have one. I wanted to thank the Linglestown Fire Company for participating with Lower Paxton Township monetarily with the fireworks on Saturday night. And yesterday, today's Tuesday, right? Yeah, yesterday Supervisor Henry, myself, and Zumas attended the Heroes Grove celebration over at Heroes Grove. That's it.
And thank Bill Mitzker for all his work in helping out. Appreciate it, Bill.
Yes. It's an outstanding program. Anybody else? Any other board members have any comments? Well, we all are back to being close together. That's we have moved into what is hopefully the post-COVID period here by returning to our usual array of seating. So, Mr. Godshall, do you have a manager's report for us this evening?
Yes, sir. Members of the board, just one item, if I may, this evening. So as mentioned a number of meetings ago, we will be moving up the calendar on considering local share gaming grant applications from the township. As the board is aware, all applicants are required to submit a township sponsorship letter to the county no later than August 1st. So in order to provide sufficient time for the board to review the applications and to have its ranking resolution and letters prepared, we are asking that all applicants have their materials to my office by Friday, July 9th at 5 p.m. for preparation of the July 13th workshop agenda. All presentations should be made on the 13th, followed by adoption of the ranking resolution and letters of sponsorship at the board's July 20th business meeting. So just a friendly reminder to those who may be considering applying for that very generous county gaming grant program. That is all I have.
Okay, thank you. We have no old business. We will move now to new business, and we're going to go a bit out. Mr. Weaver, if you would hold on 1 second. We're going to go outside the agenda order so that Director Kashiba can dispense with his item and join in the festivities downstairs for our newly sworn officers. So, Director, we do need to take action on Resolution 21-17. If you would explain.
Chairman of the board, members of the board. So the resolution you see in front of you is quite simply a way that will transmit the ownership of the apparatus that's going to be for sale, their 75-foot ladder truck, into their name so that we can more appropriately advertise said piece of apparatus for resale at the conclusion of the resale. Once that's complete and all the documents are done, the title's transferred, then they will, the company of Colonial Park Fire Company will make a check out to the township, and that will go into the capital replacement plan.
Board members, any questions?
Pretty cut and dry.
Any public questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2021-17, authorizing the disposition of a Colonial Park ladder truck in accordance with the Fire Equipment Capital Plan.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Mr. Weaver, wake up. Now we will go to action on bids for the 2021 Sanitary Sewer Improvement Project.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Lower Paxton Township opened bids on June 30th for the 2021 Sanitary Sewer Improvement Projects. You have in your packet my memo, which explains each of these different projects. There's 3 specific locations. Lot 1, Spring Creek 1. This work involves the consent decree. This will be the last overflow area that we need to eliminate. GHD has modeled the area and identified this sewer that needs to be replaced. So that is Lot 1. Lot 2 is Spring Creek 2B. The authority members may recall the SC2B project is a lining project currently going on with Granite Incorporated. They've identified these sewers that cannot be lined. Therefore, they have been put in their 2021 sanitary sewer improvement projects. Lastly, we have the Beaver Creek metering chamber. Over the last 10 years, we've had some significant rain events, and in 2 occasions, our metering chamber has been flooded and damaged. So we actually copied off of Swadera Township Authority. They have a similar facility down at the township line at Spring Creek Road. So we met with their engineers, and GHD was able to design a similar facility. So you have in your packet, the low bid received was from Pact One LLC in the amount of $937,360, $937,360. The engineer's estimate was $887,500. You can see that we did have some competitive bids. We had 5 different bidders. You also have in your packet that GHD has provided their bid tab and also has indicated that Pact has the experience and the equipment to complete the project. Also, you have in your packet the letter that was transmitted and signed by Pact requesting a waiver from any delay claims. Since this is an overflow event, we weren't able to delay the bid opening. and we are still waiting for one permit from the DEP. As such, staff recommends award of the bid to Pact One LLC in the amount of $937,360, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Bill, have we used them before?
We have.
We have. Okay.
Yeah, they did a mini basin project about 7-8 years ago over at Gale Drive.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any public questions or comments from Mr. Weaver?
And this includes you said is the last one to deal with overflows?
In Spring Creek.
Spring
You're
Creek.
well aware we have significant capital improvement budgets in Beaver and Paxton, but in Spring Creek, it's a much smaller drainage area, and we started that work way back in 1991. So this is the last area. I shouldn't say last because it's never last.
It's never last.
Currently,
Right.
it is the last. But as you know, we constantly monitor and model the system. We don't anticipate any projects in the next 5-year period, but eventually we'll have to start over in Spring Creek 1 and do some other areas.
So the engineer's estimate was lower than what the lowest bid came in.
Yes, GHD, Melissa was a little disappointed. She's usually really close. I would say this is probably COVID related. Materials costs have gone up. So I would guess that that's probably the reason.
Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the action on bids for the 2021 Sanitary Sewer Improvement Project to Pac One LLC in the amount of $937,360, as presented by Mr. Weaver.
Motion is on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. And now we're going to move to item 10B, which is the board is prepared to take action on Ordinance 21-03. This will be amending Chapter 203 of the Codified Ordinances related to the keeping of bees and chickens. Mr. Godshall, would you like to make remarks, and then we'll turn this over to Solicitor Stein to conduct the public hearing.
I believe all the comments have been sufficiently worked out, and unless there's any questions for me before the hearing, I'd like to turn it right over to Mr. Stein.
Very good. Mr. Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a time and date set for the public hearing on Ordinance 21-03, which would amend Chapter 203 of the Codified Ordinances related to the keeping of bees and chickens. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard on Ordinance 21-03? If you could just go to the podium and state your name and address.
Solicitor Stein, supervisors. My name is Ginger Courtois. I live at 661 Maria Drive. Before I bought my home there, I checked out the zoning and made sure that I wouldn't be sitting next door to things that I didn't want to sit next door to, like a prison, landfill, community pool, tavern, boarding house, an adult bookstore, and livestock and poultries. My understanding of the current zoning that I bought under was that you needed to have an acre of land in order to have that. The properties in our neighborhood are 1/3 and 1/4 acre, so I didn't expect to be finding any livestock anytime soon. I was looking at the definitions online, and I saw it said the keeping of domestic animals of types normally considered to be kept for the pleasure of resident families, to include cats, dogs, small birds, gerbils, rabbits, and other pets commonly sold in retail pet shops. So just to do my due diligence, I did call PetSmart and Petco, and they don't now, nor have they ever, nor do they intend to at any time soon. sell chickens. Now, I spoke to a gentleman named Nick at Community Development, and he told me that originally they were going to take it from an acre down to a quarter acre, and I don't quite understand why such a big change. Doesn't seem like a compromise of any type, maybe from an acre down to 3/4 of an acre or half an acre. But I understand that now it's gone from the quarter acre that was originally spoken to 0.2, a fifth of an acre. That's a big change, and I checked what a 0.2 acre lot looks like. Just randomly, I went into Realtor.com. I had a friend that grew up on Virginia Avenue, and those are small lots over there, so I checked one. I just brought one up on Virginia Avenue, and they don't list them even. They're so small, they don't even list them as an acre, as mine comes up as a third of an acre. They list them under square feet, and 0.2 acres is 8,712 square feet. 4919 Virginia is just barely over the 8,700 mark. So that's roughly the size of the acreage that we're going to be talking about for chickens. And I'm presuming that you're saying that the chickens will be kept in the backyard, not the front, so that further makes the lot further or smaller that it's going to be sitting on, because you're not using the front yard. So it's not even really going to be 0.2 acres. It's going to be whatever part of that 0.2 acres exists in the backyard. I would have liked to seen a compromise, or like we have with pools, it's a attractive nuisance. So people put fences up. I was thinking if people are going to have chickens because of the odor, if nothing else, that they could put up maybe stockade fences, that might be a compromise to help with this. I already have on our street, we have neighbors that have moved chickens and a rooster in, and that's how I found out about the meeting to begin with. I spoke to Nick at Community Development and informed him that we had chickens and a rooster, and also he told me at that point that he himself was aware of a rooster because he drove down Sumner, which is like the next street over perpendicular. He heard a rooster over there, and I said, well, this kind of makes my point. With the existing rules that we have, which I understand remain at an acre at this point before the vote, people are already violating having chickens and roosters, and Nick's already hearing the chickens and, well, the rooster he heard. So I was told that it's going to be heavily enforced, but the change hasn't even come into effect, and what we have existing is not being enforced. I don't know if, we have 4 new police officers, but I don't know, is that something that we really want to tie our police force up doing? I don't know if we have enough people in Nick's department that would be doing that, but as I said, I have complained about the chickens up the street from me, and I know of 2 neighbors over on Francis that have already complained about the rooster and chickens over there, and nothing has been done to this point. I'm all for personal freedom. I'm about live, let live. It just so happens that the neighbors they're a different culture. I work at the library, so we work with everybody, and I'm happy to do that. I have people of different cultures in my family. We've been very friendly and warmly open to these new neighbors that we've had come in, not just the ones with the chickens, but 2 other neighbors in the neighborhood, or 2 other neighbors on the street. And they're lovely people, frankly. They're lovely people. They're easy to get along with, and I'm happy to have them as neighbors. They're taking care of their property. I'm not happy to have chickens or any other livestock for that matter. As I said, I searched what the zoning was going to be like so that I would not have people coming in living next to me later on with things that I found objectionable, adult bookstore to be one, and not to pick on that particularly, but when people buy their property, if they have something specific in mind that they would like to use the property for, I feel that just like me and my other neighbors, they can check out what the zoning is. We have areas, well, you're aware more than I am, we have areas already in Lower Paxton Township that would fit into that criteria where people could have chickens, or they can be where I am if they have a full acre lot. So I bought my home in good faith, as did my neighbors, and most of them, not most of them, but many of them on our street have lived there for 59 years. These homes were built in 1962. They bought the homes when they were brand new. They've lived there all their lives and raised their children there. They're now my age or a little bit older. They have fully planned on retiring there. This is going to completely change not only the character of our neighborhood, but since the lots that they're proposing to have chickens are so small, 0.20, if I'm correct, please somebody correct me if I'm not, that's basically going to be any property in this township. And I wonder if anybody, well, perhaps you have, has really thought about the impact that that's going to have, because that's basically going to say that every homeowner in this township is going to be able to keep chickens. That's a lot of chickens. Now, I'm going to bring up something that is maybe going to make some people uncomfortable, but I'm going to bring it up now. We're a very quiet neighborhood. I'm just talking about the streets right around myself. I'm on Maria, the next one over is Colleen, the next one over is Francis. Sumner is perpendicular and Callet is perpendicular. It's a very quiet neighborhood, and I was speaking with one of the officers before the meeting, and I said to him, I said, right now you all need GPSs to find our streets because it's so quiet. None of them are ever out there, and they don't need to be. They need to be where they're needed. But not everyone is happy about people of different cultures moving into our neighborhood, and we are getting more people of different cultures in our neighborhood, people who grew up with chickens and they're used to having chickens, and not everybody is all about just the chickens. We have people that already weren't happy about these folks moving into our neighborhood, and I think we've all seen the bias against Asians on the TV, these Asian hate crimes. I have Asians in my family, and it's horrendous to me to watch this. These people, too, are of Asian descent, and not everyone in this neighborhood, or I'm sure across the township, are as welcoming. And there's some thinly veiled animosity now, and I'm afraid that people with hotter heads than I have, if the chicken thing goes through and they find themselves with roosters crowing in the middle of the night or in the morning or whatever, I don't know that this is going to make for our neighborhood staying as quiet as they are now. So I guess what I'm asking is I'm asking to maybe table this, discuss it more. I don't know if I've brought up anything that you haven't thought about before. Like I said, maybe there's a compromise to go from an acre down to 3/4 of an acre, or could we do like with the attractive nuisance of the pool? Could we ask for a fence to keep out the odors from coming down? Pardon me, I'm having an old lady moment here. But the pool's an attractive nuisance. This is going to be for many an unattractive nuisance, at least odor-wise. I had an uncle that raised chickens. I don't know if any of you have ever smelled chickens there. I didn't think I'd ever hear myself say the words that they're worse than pigs, but they truly are a new olfactory experience if you haven't had it before. So, do you have any questions for me? Is there anything more I can tell you about my neighborhood or my point of view?
I have one question.
Yes.
I was under the impression, unless something changed within the week, that no roosters were authorized. So you assume that they are, or you read that they are?
Well, no, I understand that they're not going to be. My understanding is that the change is going to be for 4 chickens and no roosters.
Okay.
Maybe I misspoke. We have 2 roosters right now. We have one at 631 Maria, and we have one at 606. 606?
Francis.
606 Francis, yes. There are already, and this is my point, how is this going to be enforced when it hasn't been enforced yet? And you know, God bless the police. We just saw, I lived on Manayunk Drive. That was my first apartment. I can't remember the number, but that was my first apartment. God bless them that they not only got out all in one piece themselves, but there were no other, I understand that there was somebody already shot to begin with, but they managed to close that whole thing down without any other violence. If they're working on that, they shouldn't be out looking for roosters.
No, they wouldn't be. They would not be the over here. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Judd. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I took off my glasses.
I know. They would not be the front line.
It would be development, community development.
Yeah, this
but
would be like other ordinances, you know, grass and things like that. Now we currently don't allow roosters. They shouldn't be allowed.
Yes, I understand.
That should be enforced. I don't know what the history is, or if that's been brought to the township's attention before, or I don't know. But just so you know, from where we started with this, you talked about compromise. We were quite skeptical. I think I can speak for some of the members of this board, and we had to be convinced about quality of life impact, because that's very important.
Yes.
It's very important. It's one of our main jobs. And it was only when I was assured that this could be done, that other municipalities do it without impacting quality of life, that I would even pursue it. That's just me personally. And just speaking with people. Now, obviously, you had an experience that made an impression on you. Everybody I talked to, I was led to believe that as far as smells and things like that, that would not be an issue for neighbors. I was assured by more than one person, many in this, you know, in our conversations in this room.
Mm-hmm.
So,
was that somebody pro or con?
Oh, well, it was obviously pro. It was obviously people who had them. It was obviously people who.
Pardon me, I didn't mean to be snarky.
No. And here's the other thing. You know, we I think we talked about it a few times at a few meetings, and had a workshop on it. It's, you know, it's hard to solicit opposition. You're more likely to get people who want to have something, who own their property, and who want to use it the way they want to use it, which is we balance the quality of life with the you own the property, and our hand should be the lightest touch of all for you to do what you want on your property, up to the point where it impacts your neighbor. So those are the two sides of the, you know, of the spectrum that we dealt with. It's your property. You should be able to do with it what you want if it doesn't hurt other people. You can't impact, you know, others' quality of life and how to do that. So everything you brought up was very thoughtful. It is something I think it's safe to say. I think it is things that we considered and things that were talked about. The rooster prohibition should be enforced. And obviously, if this goes through and all of a sudden we have roosters in neighborhoods, we're going to have to act. That was specifically written so that wouldn't happen. So meaning there shouldn't be noise, there shouldn't be smell.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will respectfully disagree with you. I went and checked out the size of that lot, and as I said, 0.20 is very small, and I'm assuming that this is to be kept in the backyard.
Yes.
So you're already eliminating part of that .2 lot because the front yard is not going to be used, is that right?
Right.
Okay, so they'll be kept to the back. So that's an even smaller area, and I will tell you that cooking odors, and I'm on a third size lot, acre next to me, or house next to me is on a third acre. I can tell you that the wind blows from the north, and when they're cooking over there or anything else, and I'm on my screen porch in the backyard, I can smell it.
Well, cooking is a different thing, and I think I know what you're talking about. And I know when we talk about cultures and things like that.
Oh no, I'm talking about the charcoal briquettes.
Okay,
I
all
actually,
right.
I actually
Yeah.
like their food.
And that's a little bit, yeah, that's not the same thing as what we're talking about. Yes, when you're living that close together, I grew up in a Philadelphia row home, you are going to experience each other. But I think we wrote it in a way specifically designed to not create quality of life issues. And that, I'm just saying, that was the intent. And
I understand
that
that
was
you had that
in
intent.
our minds when we did it, and I hope we succeeded.
I understand you have that intent, but when these things go on the book, they're seldom removed. You know, it's like repealing a tax, doesn't happen. So looking at that, having experienced my uncle's farm, and he was good about keeping things clean because he had kids and he didn't want the bacteria and whatever to make them sick. I looked at that lot, and I will tell you that chickens, from my own experience, you're going to be able to smell them in the next yard. Guaranteed. My personal experience. So I guess to sum this up, I'm all for personal freedom, but I feel that my freedom is about to be violated because I bought this lot in good faith. I researched to make sure I was buying in a place that was already zoned for which I was going to use the property and not zoned for that which I found objectionable. And now I feel as though I'm about to have the rug pulled out from under me because I'm settled. The people on the street are, as I said, many of them are permanent residents since these houses were new in 1962. They've been there 59 years. And they're about to have their entire way of life turned upside down.
And I'm going to agree with you. Number one, you said about the staff. I feel that we don't have enough staff here to take care of this new ordinance because we do have chickens now in the township. We do have people that have roosters in the township. And we have a codes officer. He's very busy, and he cannot get to everything. And I have had numerous phone calls on this ordinance tonight. And also, they bring rodents. They bring diseases. They bring salmonella. They bring the avian influenza could come up. I agree with you in everything that you said. I'm a lifelong resident of Lower Paxton, 64 years here, and people came here because they wanted to live here because they loved the area in Lower Paxton Township. And I feel if we change this, going from an acre to .20, we're going to be losing some of our residents because they don't want to be living in a barnyard. And so I agree with you, and I will not be voting yes on this tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Lindsay.
Do you have any further comments?
No, except to say I hope you will give this further consideration because the makeup of this township, if every property is large enough to have chickens, I foresee that in 10 years, the makeup, maybe not even 10, the makeup of this township is going to be completely different. And I imagine you folks, being our supervisors, live in this township. Is that correct? Okay, so picture yourself with chickens on this side, chickens on that side, and then the property that abuts your backyard, chickens there. This is what we could end up with. Oh, I know. I was to say, my niece just built a house in November. She did it all by herself. Her parents would be very proud. 6 months later, now she's looking at having chickens. This was not on her books either.
Well, and I think you were right. I think with the size of the lots, I think you're going to see probably 90% of the township resident in the housing will be able to have chickens.
I'm sure you know more about the sizes of lots than I do.
Any further comments?
No, I think I've said my piece.
Great.
Thanks
Thank you.
for listening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard on Ordinance 21-03? Yes, sir. Go right up to the podium and state your name and address.
Yeah, I'm Bob Zubricki. I'm 628 Francis Drive. I just passed out some photos I just took right before coming here. I wanted you to take a look at them. This is a makeshift chicken coop at the 606 that we're talking about. You can also see the size of the weeds. We're talking 4 or 5 foot high weeds. Not just chickens, but a lot of neglect comes with this sort of an endeavor. The rodents, as Ms. Lindsay said here, is that my daughter she's in Perry County, and she has 3 chickens. Now, they had the chicken coop about 50 feet away from the house. Very successful, worked out really good. They decided to move it close to the house, 15 feet away. All of a sudden, they have a rat problem. Not a mouse problem, but a rat problem. They had to kill all these rats. They killed 50 rats around their house within a month of having these chickens close to their house.
He's already been out.
It also brings other rodents in, your foxes, some of the other type of animals that you don't want around. I lived in the township for 32 years in the property I'm in now, and I never had any problems with mice. As of 2 months ago, I got a mice problem. I go back to the corner of my lot, which borders the photos you're looking at, and I got not just mice problem, but I see snake holes. So we got snakes and mice in the area. And it's just total neglect. Even, you see, they did use the backside of their yard, but they didn't take into consideration that's the backside of my yard, and everything's coming right over into my yard. So now if I look at my value of my property, it's going to decline, if I have this sort of a mess around me. Definitely not for it. I see the ramifications. You have your emotional support animals. I can go for that if there was such a thing as one chicken, but then that's an emotional support. Now the question is what are these people doing with these chickens? About 6 months ago, I took my dog for a walk around the block. In front of this property, here you got 3 men slaughtering a chicken in the front yard 3 feet away from the sidewalk. And they were putting in the scalding water and pulling all the feathers off of it. Now, is this appropriate? I mean, right in the front yard in public view. Now, if they're doing it in their backyard and it's food, that could be acceptable, but you don't do it right in the front yard where everybody sees this going on. It's just not appropriate. Yes, they have the rooster there. We called it in. A few other neighbors called it in. They miraculously disappeared. They're probably in the basement of the house. They didn't just get rid of them immediately, especially if they're using them for food. And that's why you need the rooster, because you need to fertilize the eggs. So they're going to, if they have these chickens for food, they're going to reproduce them. And in order to do that, they're going to have to somehow get a rooster. So you're going to see the roosters pop up whether you want them or not, if they're, again, being used for food. So I just want to voice my opinion that don't think it's a good idea. I got 2 houses. I got another house in another township that's 50 miles north of here. Believe it or not, we have the same problem. They want to bring chickens into the town. They've got a rooster up there. Same exact thing as what we're talking about here. So what we decided on was to keep the ordinance the way it is, that you can have chickens in a commercial area and on an area that has 1 acre plus. Just like down here, most of the properties are anywhere from 1/2 or less acres, so you don't want to have that sort of thing in town. Okay, that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard on Ordinance 21-03? Gentleman in the blue shirt.
Link Martin, 5218 Crestwood Drive. Just wanted to support the ordinance on the bees. I've come here before, not new. I've checked with a number of beekeepers in the area about the ordinance, and there is a lot of support and feeling that we can work with the township. We've offered, it's not a hobby people get into lightly, and it is a fairly expensive hobby, actually, to get involved. But strongly support that what you are proposing is very workable, and we'll support it and work with the township. If there are any issues, let's work them out as we go. But again, just want to thank you for your consideration and the hard work over several months looking at this issue and recognizing that things change, hobbies change, interests change. And lived in our home for over 30 years, and our interests have changed with time. And again, appreciate your effort, and just wanted to speak in support of that. And others who could not be here who are very interested in this topic asked me to say that we're very supportive of your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to be heard on Ordinance 21-03? Yes, there in the back.
Hello, Ashley Pollard and Colin Powell, 4925 Colorado Avenue. Thank you so much for all of your listening and your learning and your discussions over the past 18 months. We really appreciate it. Totally respect everyone's concerns around the chickens. I would not want to live next to a rooster either. People shouldn't have roosters now. If they do, I don't think the people who would have chickens responsibly, such as ourselves, should be not allowed to have chickens and not pursue the lifestyle that we want because some people are breaking the rules. I do feel like those instances that you brought up are valid for those particular instances. I would say the majority of people who have chickens are going to do it responsibly. They're going to follow the rules, just like we see with dog ownership. The majority of people who have dogs or cats do so responsibly. It's not an issue for their neighbors. I also want to say that, as the Board of Supervisors knows, as we've presented, the majority of townships surrounding us and urban areas, New York, Philly, DC, Pittsburgh, you can have chickens on any acreage of any size. Harrisburg City, for example. We were just in Nashville, Asheville, and Durham. You can have 10 hens on any property of any size. People in other places are not experiencing these issues of vermin and rodents and diseases. Totally agree that they should be considered. I believe these ordinances were written in a way that those concerns are considered. There are avenues to address those issues. Again, I'm sorry to hear about your rooster. I certainly, again, would not want to live next to a rooster. We live on Colorado Avenue next to the lot that someone presented for the 0.20 acres. I do feel that we could have 4 hens and not be a nuisance to our neighbors, just like my neighbor can have 5 large dogs and not be a nuisance to us. There are ways to do these things responsibly. Again, in Susquehanna Township, Harrisburg City, many other surrounding townships, you can have these animals without these issues. Yes, there are always going to be those cases like the unfortunate case that you're experiencing. And again, I do think these ordinances were written in a way that account for those cases and give proper avenues for them to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, you do not need a rooster for a hen to lay eggs. That happens naturally.
And the reason that we took so long doing this is because we had heard. The question is, if everybody follows the ordinance, well, will their quality of life, knowing that there will be some violators, but if you follow it, do you get smells and do you get vermin? And I think it was even mentioned about the avian flu or something like that. Do any of these other localities, have they recorded a spike in avian flu or anything like that?
No, not that I know of. And I would also say, to your point of 90% of properties being able to have chickens, I don't think that many people would have chickens. I understand that you're saying they would be able to, but in Duncannon, for example, they went through a very similar lengthy process of having these ordinances changed. They have a permitting system very similar to the ordinances that are being proposed. I think they had 3 people sign up after many people came to the meetings. They only had a few actually have chickens. So I don't think we're going to see masses of people having chickens. I think people just agree that we should have the right to make the decision for ourselves with a small land, small property that is common in other areas where people do have hens without issue.
I'm going to disagree with you because the culture in Lower Paxton Township has changed in the past 5 years. And the culture that's coming in, they're going to be the ones that are going to have the chickens. And I know that they're putting in the permitting process here, and I just don't think it's going to be followed. And again, I don't think we're going to have the staff to take care of it. You can see what's happened now. There's roosters, and we don't have the staff to take care of it. People are complaining, and I know Nick has been out to the one, and from what I understand, they've moved them into the house. So I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Can you help me understand what you mean by different cultures moving in?
Just different cultures of people that are moving into our township. They're the people that want the chickens, okay?
They come from places, they're more comfortable doing it. They come from
right.
places where it's more
and
common.
The culture in the township is changing. And I think because of the culture that is coming, and they are the people that want the chickens, I think we're going to see an influx of chickens coming to Lower Paxton Township. And our slogan says, good government for the great community that we live in. And I feel sitting up here, I need to do good government for my residents that voted me to be sitting in this seat. And we have all these ordinances, and I don't understand why we have them if we keep going back and changing them and changing them and changing them. So, but I'm very concerned about this. I had a lot of phone calls about this asking me, please, please, you can't do this to me. The property of my house is going to go down. And I feel that it's not fair to the residents. You know, I feel we should have kept it at an acre. And if you want to have chickens, then you purchase a house where you have an acre and then you can have your chickens. But to go, like I said before, to go from an acre to 0.20, you're going to have probably 90% of the township. And you're not going to have 3 or 4 people with chickens, trust me. You're going to have a heck of a lot more that are going to end up, having them. And I personally hope that my neighbors do not do that because I will be appalled.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to make a comment to these 2 individuals who we have seen many times over many months. And it's very common that people will show up before us and demand action without properly researching the actions that they're demanding we take. You have very much been the exception to the rule. I think the manner in which the 2 of you have handled this process is a model for how it should be done. You brought us experts on chickens. Gentleman he and others on bees. We learned a lot through it. We took our time, probably more time than you wish we would have taken, but we took our time to consider all the information, and I just want to express my personal appreciation to you for the hours and hours and hours that you put into getting us the information that we needed in order to craft this ordinance and make a decision here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to say that we may be the face of it, but we, just like you, Mrs. Lindsay, have received many emails and phone calls just out of the blue from people on YouTube who see the recordings, finding us via Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, saying that they are in support of this. Also for the literally hundreds of people who signed the petition.
That I still have not seen. I have asked to see those petitions because I would like to see if all of those 500-600 that supposedly signed it, if they live in Lower Paxton Township. Because there was a gentleman here quite a few months ago that spoke in favor of it. He came from Carlisle. He wasn't even from Lower Paxton Township. I've asked to see the petitions. I still have not seen them.
So that has never gotten to me. I would be happy to go home and send it to you. I think I have sent a downloaded PDF version of all of the signatures previously. Happy to provide them again. The gentleman from Carlisle did serve as our expert. He is the president of the Capital Area Beekeepers Association. He was here to provide expert, if you will, opinion or knowledge. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to be heard on Ordinance 21-03? Yes, sir.
Hello. My name's Rob Miller. I live on 81 Leeds Court in Harrisburg. And for my first township meeting, I would like to say walking in with 30 cops standing here is a little intimidating.
You were well protected.
I don't know. What if they don't like my comments? But that was very cool to see. I was glad I was here for that. I'll go even one more step further than them. I am in favor of allowing chickens. I'm opposed to the ordinances because I think they are extremely heavy-handed in terms of so many line items needed to have chickens. Some things are obvious and make complete sense. There should be no roosters. That's not going to help anyone to have roosters. And to your point about that we aren't able to enforce things, this ordinance isn't going to change that. If we can't enforce it now, we're not going to enforce it in the future either. So that's really not a we should or shouldn't. That's an enforcement comment, not so much a this is a bad idea comment. Obviously we shouldn't have roosters, adequate enclosures. They should have food, water, veterinary care. This is all normal stuff. But as I read the ordinance, I guess my general feeling was that it was just a very heavy-handed approach to allowing chickens. Not trying to offend anyone, but it felt like it was written to make sure owning chickens was as difficult as possible. I know I shouldn't rat myself out, but I have 4 chickens at my house at 801 Leeds Court. I've had them for a year. I got them because I talked to other people who had chickens and loved them. It was COVID and we were all stuck at home. And we went out and bought 4 chickens, which, by the way, are $1 at Tractor Supply. So it's not that you don't need to breed chickens or anything. It's much cheaper to just go and buy a chicken. We thought it'd be fun. We had no idea if it would last. Honestly, I thought I would kill them within 6 months. But here we are a year later, and they're still alive. I'm guessing people have just had bad experiences, which is why they want a heavy-handed approach. You've only seen large industrial ag places with hundreds and hundreds of chickens. Yes, it would stink to high heaven, but that's not what we're talking about. Only reading about potential health hazards, which I'll talk about later. But oddly enough, I was trying to research some stuff before I came here. Based on CBS report from a pet industry that they think 10% of households have chickens in the United States. That is 13 million households in the United States have chickens. For me, 10 years ago, yes, I would have thought that was odd, but since I got chickens and I go on websites now, you realize they're everywhere. All kinds of people are doing it. It is not, unfortunately, man, those sounded very racist comments about changing the culture. Mm-hmm. Guess what? It's going to change, and it has nothing to do with chickens. They might bring chickens or not, but that sounded incredibly racist. Where was I going with that? There's chickens everywhere. People have chickens across the country. My guess is if you took away dogs right now for 10 years and then tried to allow them back in, we would all be in here saying those dogs are going to bark, they're going to poop. How can you have that many dogs on one small property, right? I mean, I've got a 180-pound German Shepherd next door. It is by far the loudest thing in the entire neighborhood. My 4 chickens, you'll never hear them. There's 4 hens. Hens do nothing but walk around and peck the ground. When they lay an egg, they talk a little bit because they're excited about it. And then that's it. Most of the day, they kind of just sit in the shade. You are all welcome to come to my house. You can send me a citation if that's what's in order. But you can also check out just what 4 chickens. I don't think I would be affected by any of these things in here, so I'm not even arguing against the heavy-handedness because it would be an annoyance to me. I mean, I would have to get a permit, and I think that's the only thing. Everything that's in here, I'm already complying with.
So can I ask you, do you have an acre of land right now with your chickens?
No, I don't have an acre of land. I have
so you're in violation?
Yeah, no, that's what I was admitting, yeah.
What is the part that's heavy? You keep mentioning heavy-handed. What are specifically are?
So it's easier if I go the other way. Other than prohibiting roosters, saying they need adequate enclosures, food, water, and veterinary care, honestly, I would say everything else is unnecessary. Especially when you're getting into the materials that you can use to build a place. You've got to have the same color on the building. I mean, I'll be honest, mine has 2 colors because the trim is white and the rest of it's yellow. Is that a violation? It would be, according to this. It says it has to be one color, right?
Is that oppressive? Is that a burden?
It's silly. It's silly. If you said that your goal is to touch as lightly as possible, telling me how to paint a square box seems way more than just a light touch. Yes, no?
No, of course not.
No?
We're trying to introduce something that doesn't currently exist.
Yeah.
And we don't want to have the impact be any greater than it has to. I am inclined to vote for this. I don't think it's heavy-handed. But I have to say, I think you're unfair, over the top, what you said about Supervisor Lindsay. What she was trying to say when the numbers were given about another municipality about how many people actually took advantage of the ability to have chickens, that every municipality is not the same. Different populations are more likely to want to have chickens just because of their culture, their history, where they came from.
Yep.
That's what you meant. I think you got to be real careful. I was a bit reckless using that term. I hope you regret it, and I wish you would apologize. You don't have to, but it's very incendiary, and you got to be really a little more careful when you use it, because didn't come from that place. We're trying to talk about what the impact will be of this ordinance, and that's our job.
Yep.
And that's the spirit in which I believe it was mentioned, and I just want to make sure that's on the record.
Okay.
But I do appreciate your other remarks.
Okay. I think that statement basically says they can go somewhere else if they would like to have chickens, was the statement. And it is. I mean, if you want to be Asian and that's your culture, and you can't afford 1 acre, let's be honest, rich people have an acre. Not poor people, not people who are just coming to the country. Rich people have an acre. I don't have an acre. I mean,
we won't get into that stuff. We're not going to get into demographics of who's rich in America today. It's probably different than you think. But that's simply we're just trying to limit the impact on quality of life and just take it into account all the impacts that there could be in Lower Paxton, and that's our job. That's all. I agree. We're coming from a good place.
Okay. So my next point is that this was brought up that Derry Township does this with no regulations. If it's a nuisance, they don't even have the word chicken in their ordinances. It's like a pet. If it's a nuisance, then you deal with those people as a nuisance. If the rooster's a nuisance, you deal with them as a nuisance. If it smells to high heaven and your neighbors complain, then you're a nuisance, and we go and we deal with them. Trying to go down to the size of the wiring that I need, if you don't have the people to enforce this stuff, having a long list of things that need to be enforced is just going to make it, I think, even harder. So that's Derry Township. Susquehanna Township, same thing. They have a little more about basically keep food away so that rats don't come, which is why rats come. They don't actually want the chickens. They want the food that's sitting out. Believe it or not, chickens will eat rats. They eat mice. They are carnivores. If a mouse or rat decides to go into your coop, they will be eaten and chased down by the chickens. You're free to go to YouTube. There's plenty of videos of that. And I think someone mentioned New York City. I mean, that's talking from tiny little houses where you're thinking, okay, maybe we don't want that. That's to super rich people on Long Island. So that's the whole gambit, and they have dealt with it with the nuisance, just the nuisance statement. If your pet is a nuisance, then we're going to deal with you as a nuisance. And then we don't have to worry about nitpicking. I mean, I could have a nuisance as a pet, follow all of these things, and then still be a nuisance. And we haven't really solved anything. You could have I could do most of this stuff, I guess, still have stinky chickens, but I'm following the rules. I guess my point is, sometimes having a lot of rules doesn't ever really get to the problem, and the problem is we're just trying don't annoy your neighbors, right? Just don't annoy your neighbors.
Well, if I may interrupt, there's actually more to it, and then obviously there's some people that need to read, have the opportunity to read this and whatever, but what we've done here is really drilled down. So we went from not allowed to have them, and I got to be honest with you, I was not in favor for a while, and I had a farm, so
it's not a farm. We're not having a farm.
Listen,
it's for
hold on
chickens.
a second. Let me finish. So I was not in favor with it, but what we've done is we've drilled down from having the requirement is an acre. We've really drilled down. So, I mean, I can understand, where you're coming from with it. It should be, if you're going to be not heavy-handed, then we shouldn't be. But boy, we've really come a far way, in just the last couple of months from 1 acre to now this. But we do, as Ms. Lindsay said, we've got an obligation to protect the other people in the community, but also to protect those chickens that you have. So I also don't want to have, seriously, because the thing is, it's kind of funny to me, because like I said, what did I say? I had a farm. So,
yeah, right.
So obviously I care about the animal, right? So if you look at these things, a lot of these things have to do, with also protecting, making sure that the animal is okay, right? So the gentleman or lady that has, the chicken coop that's behind one gentleman's house, when we get a violation, you have a chicken and it's only on it's supposed to be on an acre. We've got 1 violation. Now that person is violating a lot of stuff, right? Now, now we go, okay, where do we sense? Well, we definitely need to send somebody over there, because not only are they violating the chicken stuff, but they've got weeds like crazy. They've got all that other stuff,
which is totally irrelevant. That the guy can't mow his yard.
That's fine.
Chickens doesn't mean they don't know how to.
Oh well, we still have a requirement on how long your grass has to be.
Yep,
and also, if you live in a neighborhood that has an HOA, it's also the HOA overrides this as well. So, and you may not, but bottom line, what I'm trying to say is, you think we're being heavy-handed here, but we're doing something it's also got to protect your neighbors, to make sure that they're okay, to make sure that this isn't, an eyesore. And also to make sure that the animal itself is protected. I think this is a win-win to have something that is this detailed and this outlined. Yeah. And we've talked over the last several months, we've talked to several counties, several townships, and really drilled down on this. So, that's why we're here. Did you talk to Derry? That's where we are at this point. I don't really care what Derry's doing, because the point is we're going from 1 acre, right, down, to where we are here.
You should, though.
And so
people have dealt with it.
Here's the deal: you can always, we can always loosen it up a little bit, but we need to see where we are. So, this is where we are today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does that mean I can't speak anymore?
Oh no, it just means I'm done.
Okay.
No, you good. If you have further comments, you can certainly make them.
Oh, good. Well, in general, I think it's just that people have a very poor view of what chickens are. Maybe it's because they came from a farm and they see tons of poop. These are people, if it's going to be for chickens, it's people who treat them like pets 90% of the time. Like you said, there's going to be other people who don't know what they're doing. Chickens don't sprout salmonella. They don't sprout E. coli. Dog poop has E. coli. Human feces has E. coli. As with any animal, if you touch an animal, you should wash your hands. All of these ordinances are nice. At the end of the day, they don't actually deal with the safety, which is if people don't wash their hands, they might get sick. And if I clean out my coop like I'm supposed to according to the ordinance, the number one thing I need to do is wash my hands. If you're worried about sicknesses and all of that, then again, this doesn't necessarily solve it. I think we can educate people, or you should look into educating people. I think that's going to be way more important than worrying about the color of the chicken coop that they've got. There's lots of resources out there. The CDC has a whole thing about how to deal with backyard chickens. So they're not a walking disease. When you have 4 just in your backyard, they're not interacting with other chickens. They just stay there. If they come in without disease, unless you have something weird happen, they're not going to just pick it up out of the air. I guess that's about all I wanted to say. I would love for you to talk to people who have townships that just deal with it in other ways, and maybe find out that I think you're adding a burden to the permit department. Now they're going to have to deal with permits. I assume that means they're going to have to come out and look at all the coops to give you the permit to make sure you're meeting all these things. How's that person going to do that? And then as soon as they leave 1 year from now, I might not be compliant with something. Are they going to keep coming out? Of course they're not. They're not going to. That's why I think if you put something with just a nuisance or an eyesore or something, I agree with eyesore. I live in a nice neighborhood. I don't want ugly things. Those just seem, to me, much more common sense.
So if we came to you and said it was an eyesore and a nuisance, you would stop?
Well, I mean, I don't know how you would write it.
I mean, you just told me that if we came out and said, hey, you're in violation,
Yep.
that you wouldn't follow it. So if I tell you if it's an eyesore, would you stop? I believe that
I
the
assume you would
answer
have
is no.
Well, if there's a
Because you just told me that it was no.
No, I'm saying if you have a way of backing up by saying you can't have a nuisance and your enforcement can enforce that, then you would enforce it under saying it's a nuisance. Here's your whatever it is. You give a ticket or something like that, and you got to clean up your act, and we'll be back. Just the same way I assume you're going to do it now, right? You're going to say something's wrong with what I've got.
Yeah.
And you're going to give me a ticket or whatever it is.
Yeah, but you just said that you would just a year later not follow it anyway, right? So, so if I came and said it was a nuisance,
I mean, yes, that is.
you'd go, hey,
that is
thanks,
true,
and then
yeah.
the second I'm off your driveway, you'd
Yeah,
start
yeah.
back up again.
No, I know, but I'm saying the permit person is going to have to come back and re-inspect me every year. Now you're adding
Feels
a ton
like a
more
moot
work.
point.
A ton more work. My
feels-
neighbors, let's be honest, are going to be way more on top of it. If my chickens are annoying, they're going to call you guys and say, "Hey, I got annoying chickens," and let them do the enforcement. All right. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Thank you. It's my first meeting in 13 years.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to be heard on Ordinance 21-03?
John Trish, 600 Prince Street. Sitting at home watching this meeting, and I felt to come up here because of two reasons. One, to enforcement, and I think people ought to have the right to do what they have with their property, what they want to, as long as they don't affect their neighbors. I think the ordinance accomplishes that. They have to have a chicken coop. They have to have a chicken run. If there's an aggravating smell, they can call and complain. I'm sick and tired because right now, later on tonight, you're going to vote on changing 31-acre farm into residential. Or maybe it's not tonight. But there's 31 acres in this township. It's going to be changed from farm to residential. Now, are they going to require them houses to be 1 acre so that people that want to move into township can have chickens? No. Triple Crown's going to say, we want to put them on 10th acre lot with a 30-acre or a 30-foot backyard so they can't have anything. People want to have chickens and people want to have bees. Common sense to me, just to me, that I bought my property. I've got almost 3/4 of an acre. I can't have chickens. I could, and when the cockeye comes and I hide them. But my point is, whatever happened to the Constitution where I have my property, and I think Lyman Henry spoke this very eloquently 2 meetings ago. He says, I believe in people having the right to do with their land what they want to. So all I'm saying is this. You wrote the ordinance. There's a lot of legality in there where if you're doing wrong, you got to get rid of the chickens. But for those people who honestly want to have chickens to get the fresh eggs, what is the problem? I don't understand that. So all I'm saying is, in my opinion, because this township is being torn apart by houses over houses. Look at Windmere Farms. Look over here at Royal Oaks, where Lancer was supposed to be connected to Devonshire so that the traffic that went in didn't come back out. And they said, no, let's put in a cul-de-sac and build more houses. And the Board of Supervisors approved that. So if you drive down Lancer and go into them houses, you have to turn around and come back. And initially, the initial proposal was to go through to Devonshire to come out on the other end of town. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But what I'm saying is, the people that have 2/10 of an acre, a quarter acre, let them do what they want with their property as long as they're following your rules. I don't understand what the problem is. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to be heard on Ordinance 21-03? Seeing no further response, Mr. Chairman, it would be in order at this time to close the public hearing on Ordinance 21-03, and the board may take action if it so desires.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Thank you to all of you who took time this evening to come to what's one of our longer meetings and offer your input on this. This is what local government is for. And I think we saw tonight sort of a microcosm of the debate. The issue, as Mr. Trish pointed out, folks having a right to do with their own property what they want versus not impacting the quality of life of your neighbor. Some folks think the ordinance is too lenient. Some folks think it's too stringent. So since everybody thinks that it's too something, maybe we did hit the sweet spot in the middle, I hope. Would anybody on the board like to make any comments before we call for a motion?
Just real quick, along the point you just made, that the speaker who was opposed to it and the speaker who said it was too strict, you both, your opinions are very important, and I hope we strike the right balance, but your views are, frankly, the kind of thing that I wrestled with the whole time.
I would just like to say, again, I don't think people are going to come in and get the permits. They're going to do what they want to do, and I feel we don't have the staff to enforce it.
Any other board members have a comment? Okay. Hearing none, we have before us action on Ordinance 21-03, amending Chapter 203 of the Codified Ordinances related to the keeping of bees and chickens. Would any board member like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we approve the ordinance allowing bees and chickens with the changes that we've made.
Okay. Those changes are incorporated in what is now Ordinance 21-03.
Correct.
So we do have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. I would like the secretary to conduct a roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Lindsay?
No.
Mr. Zumas?
Before I say yes, I just want to say that I've been in a decision-making position for 52 years. Some were affecting the lives of people that worked under me. And I learned to find out that no matter what your decision is, not everybody's going to be happy. I not only did the research, did a lot of reading, a lot of listening. I visited 3 boroughs myself. If anybody's familiar with Swarthmore down near the college, Media Borough in Delaware County. And I talked to people that had them, and I talked to their neighbors. I actually went up and knocked on the doors. They didn't know me, and they didn't know what I was there for. But we got engaged in some conversation, and it kind of satisfied me that, you know, there's always going to be exceptions. There's always going to be problems, and you deal with them as they come about. And as a result, I vote yes.
Mr. Judd?
Yes.
Mr. Navarro? Yes. Mr. Henry?
Yes. Okay, the motion passes 4-1. Thank you. With that, we now need to move on to the awarding of the selection of a contract for the comprehensive update to the zoning ordinance. Mr. Gottschall, would you like to explain?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. In response to a request for proposals for updating the township's zoning code, staff has reviewed a proposal from HRG and finds it worth recommending to the board that the submission be selected and HRG contracted for this service. Among other strengths, staff find it quite interesting and fitting that the township's engineer that works with our zoning code on a daily basis be selected to perform this comprehensive review. In addition, with HRG's representation of dozens of municipalities across the Commonwealth, they have a vast sampling of examples and model zoning concepts from which they may draw insight for our rewrite. As you may recall, the board has authorized $30,000 for this project in its 2021 General Improvement Fund budget, and HRG's proposal provides a cost estimate of $29,988.
Did they read our budget before
they may have.
submitting?
They may have. Once approved this evening, I will work with our solicitor and staff to have all required contracts executed and the project underway.
Mr. Gottschall, it's my understanding that this was put out for bid and this was the only bid we received?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So others had an opportunity
They
if
did,
they would
yes.
have chosen.
Yes,
Thank
and
you.
we sent the RFP, actively sent the RFP to a number of firms, and we also did the typical advertising that we normally do. So,
Thank you. Any board member questions or comments? Any public questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion on awarding this comprehensive update to the zoning ordinance proposal, awarding the contract?
I'll make a motion as presented by Chairman Henry.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved in second. And could you specify that the award will be to HRG?
I'm sorry, and the award will be awarded to HRG.
Okay with the seconder?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's see. We already did 10D. We now need to move to subdivision and land development, where we have a number of improvement guarantees. And I believe that we don't have any conflicts on any of these. Therefore, if there are no questions, we'll take a motion to approve the improvement guarantees.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the improvement guarantees as outlined on the agenda.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. We now move to payment of bills for Lower Paxton Township and the Lower Paxton Township Authority. Mr. Treasurer.
Mr. Chairman, move that we do approve the payments of bills for Lower Paxton Township and the Lower Paxton Township Authority.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any further announcements or comments? Hearing none, the next meeting of the Board of Supervisors will be a workshop meeting on Tuesday, July 13th at 7 p.m. right here in this meeting room. No further business being before the board. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.